So when we're looking at, for example, this narrative here, this is the oil at the bottom edge on a very, very low time frame chart. You can see that we had a quite a strong divergence here. So obviously when we've got a strong divergence like this on a bigger time frame, of course, that's going to be a buy trade off the bottom edges. But when the actual buy trade happened, we actually had the flip back on the sell side here. So we've got to have a rule for that. But obviously on a bigger time frame, I was already getting into that as a buy trade anyway. So we can see that there's this idea of looking into these areas. And obviously you can see even on a 15-second how beautiful that 80-20 original sell came in there. But on that basis, how quickly do we get back into that as a buy trade into the top edge? Remember, if we were looking at any of these trades using a normal moving average on the same settings, we wouldn't have got the buy trade anyway. If by the time we got the buy trade, it never crossed over really until we got into this candle phase here. That's where your buy trade would be, $79.90. A massive difference from $79.65. So there's obviously these types of challenges, isn't there? There's these kind of things that we've got to try and figure out. But you can see if you used a normal moving average during this period here, you'd have got absolutely annihilated. I mean, it crosses over once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times in that area. 6 times in 25 minutes. Every single crossover lost you between 5 and 10 ticks. So that was a nightmare for a moving average crossover strategy, wasn't it? So we've got to kind of look into these types of ideas to figure out what kind of trade idea might work out for us. And again, the idea of knowing the location to try looking for these types of ideas. Obviously, if you're thinking that this is getting a little bit toppy because of the size of the volumes coming in, well, of course, this is an area you might say, well, I'm going to start looking for the possibility that there's going to be a top line coming in. Bearing in mind, you're going to try and tie that in with some decline in the euro here, which starts to look now into this area. So you're going to start saying, well, can I get a crossover into this top edge here? Is there a possible crossover on that trade? And you can see at that stage, you can see that the crossover was pretty much already well established in terms of that bigger macro narrative at the top edge. Unfortunately, again, with the very, very short term, because you can see these crossovers are very, very tight. So it doesn't take much just to throw that trade out a little bit into these top edges up here. But again, that's going to be a rule, isn't it? There's going to be a rule for that. And you can see that if you were taking that as a sell-off, you can see obviously that the sell really did develop quite easily during that top edge phase. And there's a macro sell coming in there as well. Very strong macro sell coming into that as a play at that stage. And obviously based on that, we're looking at this top edge here. We're seeing a bit of a drop coming in, and obviously it's came down, and you can see that we've had a little crossover into the bottom edge here. And into the bottom edge, you're now looking and watching for the possibility that there might be a reversal coming off the $80 area. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's one of those things. But as I said, I'm not convinced yet, not even close to convinced yet. But like anything else, you're always paying attention to stuff. You're always paying attention to anything that gives a level, that gives an idea, that gives a thought, that gives a process. You're always paying attention to momentum. You're always paying attention to those types of stories, aren't you? So again, looking at the oil at the top edge, you then can search through things like order flow tools. You can start looking to see what the oil was doing in terms of order flow narratives. And I think that's what Reeves talking about, the oil flow narrative. And you can see that it was just total exhaustion at that point as well, wasn't it? Total exhaustion. So, I mean, are you going to go any higher on that? I mean, an exhaustion print, you're obviously going to run stops, you're going to take out top lines, and you're going to get ready to deal. And based on that information, you can see that that's a perfect top line exhaustion, and it started pretty much from this point onwards. And it became a very, very easy exit for anybody that was long the oil at that stage. Yeah. So again, same type of ideas. It's just the stuff we taught in classroom yesterday. And stacking those pieces of information in our favor gives us some pretty good ideas about where to trade this. So not convinced yet by any means, Theo, but I mean, it's got enough of an interest that it could be something of interest to us. It could be something of interest that we can put out. But as I said, I'm not yet convinced that that's the case. That little buy trade still kicking along quite nicely. We've managed to make a new high at 42s. The RGL buy trade at 38s, of course, managed to get a 4-point move. I mean, you might be laughing at 4 points, but if the risk is 2 points, if the risk is 4 ticks, 1 point, a 4-point move is possibly 8% return on your account. 8%. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that at all, guys. So, great trade, lovely trade outcome. Bonds did get back into the prior low at 20. They have bounced on that. The dollar never backed up the bond at that stage. The bond has bounced. I didn't buy into it, I must admit. I didn't buy into it, so I am not long off the bounce, but I did use the 20, which was the prior low, to take monies. So there's the prior low there. We've came back into this. This is where we exited the last time for the big revival in bond prices. So I'm very, very cautious about the fact that there was a big buyer here before. I was very cautious about being a big buyer here before. The dollar didn't support the sell in any way, shape, or form. So with the dollar not supporting it, you might say, what the hell are the dollar guys up to here? Doesn't make a lot of sense, doesn't it? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So you can see that trade there. Yeah, I don't really like the sell at this point. And if it did retest into the prior lows, which obviously are against this price down here, then we might be able to find a buy opportunity, maybe to flip back into the longs. Who knows? Seen stranger things happen.